Good evening and welcome to the fourth Ask Libby webinar. We're glad you could join us tonight. My name is Elaine Harris and I will be on the control panel for this session. In a moment, I will pass you over to Libby Wood, who's PharmIQ's dairy expert. Tonight, Libby will be discussing one of farming's most important topics, staff management. By the end of this webinar, we hope that you will be well equipped with the knowledge and tools to effectively communicate and manage both staff and contractors on your farm, in turn improving your overall farm efficiency. But first, let's quickly run through how to use the system so the new viewers in the crowd this evening will know how to get their questions heard. You'll see that you have a controls panel on your screen, and if you'd like to reduce or enlarge it, just click that big orange button right at the top of the control panel. In order to reduce background noise, we've muted all of the attendees. However, this definitely doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. We'd love you to participate, and there are two ways that you can do this. You can either raise your hand by clicking the little hand icon at the bottom of the control panel. Let's try this out now and do a quick sound check. If you can hear me, please click the icon to raise your hand. Oh, perfect. Awesome. We are recording this webinar, so if anyone does lose their connection at any point, no stress, just send us an email and we'll be sure to send you the recording link afterwards so that you can catch up on anything you've missed. The second way you can participate is through typing your questions and comments into the questions box on your control panel. Libby will be sure to answer these throughout the session or at the end, depending. As I said before, please don't be shy tonight. We are doing this webinar for you. So if you've got any questions or something you would like to discuss, please do make sure you let us know. Honestly, there is nothing, no such thing as a silly question here. Righto, that's all the housekeeping done. I'll hand over to Libby now so that we can crack into the interesting stuff. Hello, Libby.
Hi, Elaine. Thanks for the intro. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our staff management webinar. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Libby Wood, the National Dairy Business Manager for PharmIQ. So today we're going to be talking about staff management on the farm. So what information do we want to collect and communicate, and how can we make this easier? So let's have a look at our agenda for today. So first off, we're going to talk about staff and contractor management. Then we're going to have a look at timesheets and rosters and how these can help us. Then we're going to have a talk about plans and task management and how we can easily communicate these tasks and plans. We're also going to talk about third parties in there. And we're going to look at some digital tools in the PharmIQ system that can help us achieve these goals. And after that, we're going to have some time for questions before we wrap up. And as Elaine mentioned, please feel free to type those questions as we go, and I will answer those as in due course. So first up, staff. When we think about running the farm, we often think about land and animals and feed, but really when you think about it, it's actually about people and the decisions that we make. And you know, considering people becomes a whole lot more important if we've got staff, because then we have to be able to communicate these decisions well to others. So we'll talk about communication a bit more shortly, but first off, let's think about what extra information we actually need to gather if we've got staff working on our farm. So obviously we want to hold basic data like contact details, employment details, but it's also important to collect some information from a legal aspect. So you know, we need to monitor time because we need to make sure that staff are not being underpaid or doing too many hours, for example. And monitoring time is also really important from a health and safety perspective. So ensuring that staff aren't overworked and they're getting sufficient breaks and days off. So that covers sort of the basic details, but we might also want to hold information on training and qualifications, for example, to make sure that our staff are capable and qualified to undertake the tasks that we are setting them. And this actually links pretty neatly into emergency responsibilities as well. So to give an example, does a particular staff member have a first aid course certificate? If so, great, they can be a first aider as part of an emergency responsibility, for example. And of course, a lot of this information is confidential, so we need to be mindful of where we store it, and digital recording can be a great solution for this. So we'll touch on that confidentiality. Oh, mouth failed today. We'll talk about that confidentiality aspect later. Cool, that was a mouthful. Let's carry on. So contractors, there are a lot of similarities here with what we talked about for staff. So obviously we need to keep records of contact details and employment details. But the main difference here is that our responsibilities are slightly different in terms of health and safety. So we need to keep some separate records, and specifically we need to keep induction documents, which we're going to cover in a bit more detail when we actually have a look at those digital tools, but just keep that in mind for later. So timesheets and rosters. These are both tools that we can use to help us meet our legal requirements. So obviously to make sure that staff are not working too few or too many hours. So we've just got a screenshot there on the left of timesheets in the FarmIQ system, entering through the mobile phone app, and we'll have a look at that tool in full a bit later. So that's timesheets. Well, rosters. So rosters are a great tool for managing time. So looking ahead to the future, the coming week, coming month. And when you've got a team of staff, fairness and spreading the workload is really important. So, a roster provides transparency of who is working when, so staff know that there's a quality and a fair workload. It can also help you ensure that staff have a good work-life balance. And it's just a really easy tool to communicate to your staff what the schedule is. So creating a roster helps you plan ahead and ensure that you've got the right staff at the right time. And we'll go into this in more detail shortly. So I mentioned in the agenda that we're going to talk about third parties. So third parties are a term that we use at FarmIQ to refer to people that are involved in our business but are outside, they're not staff and they're not contractors. So there are other people that we involve in our business, such as a vet or a consultant, or a TFO, or an agronomist from a supplier, for example. So these could be people that you might want to record information on. So if you've had a consultant come on farm, you might want to record when they visited you. Put that in your health and safety records. But as well as wanting to record information about them, you might want them to record information for you. So you might actually want these people to access some of the information you have pertaining to your farm to support your business. So just to give an example of that to make it a bit clearer. So think about an agronomist from a farm supplier, so whether it's Wrightson's or Farmlands or Farm Source, they might come onto your farm and help you create a cropping plan, for example. So what we're going to look at that a bit later is how you can give somebody like that access to your farm records, and give them the permission to actually record information for you, if that's what you want. So as I say, we'll talk about that shortly, and we'll look at permissioning, so you can actually control what these third parties see if you're going to give them access to your farm information. So we've talked about different people and different tools. How do we bring all this together? How do we get everyone on the same page? So as I mentioned previously, farming is a human endeavour. It's about people. It's important to have really good communication and clear sharing of that information. And one of the things that makes that easier is having a farm diary. It makes it clear to everyone what's been happening. What happened, when did it happen, who did it, all that sort of information. And it's also really useful for forward planning. So setting tasks helps everyone understand the plan for the future. Having a clear plan and goals helps you get buy-in from your staff. They know what they're working towards. And thinking about, having transparency of what you've done and where you're going, it helps you get the right thing done at the right time, which makes everything more efficient, and it just makes economic sense, really. So we've covered some basic concepts of staff management, but how do we actually bring this to life? And I think digital tools are something that can do this for us. So the benefit of a digital tool, it brings all this information into one place rather than having multiple paper diaries, a main diary maybe in the dairy. It's online and easy, so you can get access from a smartphone device or a PC. Real-time data, this makes your planning process more of a living thing rather than a plan on a bit of paper that goes in the drawer. And good records help us to make better decisions. So there's lots of benefits to using some digital tools. So we spoke before about health and safety and some employment requirements. And these are aspects of our farm business that we're required to do. Digital tools can help us to meet these obligations, but they can also help us be more efficient, productive, and profitable. So let's have a look at some digital tools that can actually help us achieve this. So we're going to have a look at the Farm IQ demonstration dairy farm, as we have been the last few webinars. So here we are. Here is our, just probably loading for you now, here is our demonstration dairy farm. So we've come into our farm map, and if you were present at some of the other webinars, we looked at drawing on some of these hazards and had some conversations about that. So today what we're going to talk about is this People tab at the top here. So under our People tab, we've got all of our menus for our staff management. So we're going to start at the beginning, and we're going to have a look at staff. So this section here on staff is where we can create all of our staff members that we've got on farm. So we've got a list here of everyone that's on this fictitious farm. I can create people from scratch here using add new. I can see people that were previously active on this farm, but I've since deactivated. But at the moment, I'm just looking at my current list of my staff members. So you'll see here that we've actually got 2 staff members with this Farm IQ logo next to them. And this means that this person, this production manager, has a log on to the Farm IQ system. So they have their own username and password, they can enter data, they can receive tasks, they can receive information, and we're going to touch on that a bit more later. So what we're going to have a look at first, we're going to have a look at this production manager and see what information I've got held here about this person. So we start with our basic details, so their name, their contact details. It's a place to hold all of that basic info that you need to have. And then this section here, access details. This is where we actually give a person access to Farm IQ. So if this person left, I can take away this access. I can give it back at any time. And the next important section is this bit here. So what type of access should this person have? So if we just look in this drop down, we can see that I can actually tailor what permissions this person has. So if I decided I didn't want them to actually record anything, I could give them view farm only. So they'd be able to view the system, they'd be able to look at the information in there and the map and the diary, but they wouldn't actually be able to record anything. So these are the permissions that we've got set up as templates. You can completely create your own from scratch. So if you wanted to create a custom profile for a relief milker, for example, you can do that. It's fully customizable up to you. So we'll leave that as it is for now. And we're going to move on and have a look at the other menus that we've got here. So on the left here, I'm going to have a look at my employment details now. So here we've got a little bit about what this person does and some information about what their job entails. So they're my production manager, they're full-time, I've got the date that they started, and I can enter in here contracted hours per week. So this might seem just like a little bit of random information, but it's actually pretty smart because it links through to my timesheets. So when we look at my timesheets in a few minutes, we're going to see that there is a section on contracted hours, and as my staff member puts in their time, it's going to tell me what percentage of that time they've done. So we'll see if they are under or if they've gone over their time. So we'll have a look at that shortly. And we've got something else pretty smart in here as well, where this is roster schedules. So we might think of two main schedules that we might use throughout the year. So it could be that our schedule 1 is during just through the main milking season of the year. So we've got somebody that's 10 days on and 4 days off. And then schedule 2 might be, say, our schedule through calving period, for example, and we've got that set at 6 days on and 1 day off. And you'll see when we go through to our roster that we can actually choose to apply those schedules, which is a great shortcut there. So that's something that we can come in and customize at any time. So let's have a look now at our training qualifications and competencies. So we talked about a first aid course in our example a bit earlier on, and we can see here that our employee here has done a first aid course. And let's just have a look at that and see a bit more detail. So we can see when they finished that course and what the expiry date is, and that turns out it was actually yesterday. So when I create these records, I can actually ask the system to alert me when that course, that certificate is actually going to expire. So I said that, yep, I want to know when that first aid certificate expires. I want you to tell me, and I want you to remind me a week before. So I actually got a reminder from FarmIQ just about a week ago, reminding me that this staff member's course his certificate had run out, and now we've been proactive about that and booked them in on their next first aid course, so they'll continue to be up to date. So if we just look over here at add training course, so we'll see how easy it is to do. So similar form to what we saw before. So I just put in whatever qualification. So it might have been chemical handling. We've got a range of course types, so it was a training course, and we'll say that this staff member did that on Monday. So again, I can just stick in an expiry date, say for the sake of argument that it's a year-long thing. I can put any licensing numbers in there, and yep, again, I can ask it to tell me when that certificate is going to run out. I can put attachments in here, so if I want to take a photo of that certificate, I can hold all that information here. And easy as that, all done. So I can put in competencies as well. So that might be things like, done a four-wheel driving course. That might be, competent in chainsaw usage. It could be whatever. So if we have a look at that, it's the same thing. So it's a key task. So it might be, feed out wagon operation. Who trained them? When was it assessed? And did they get like a competency certificate? So yeah, that's that, very similar. So as I say, really good, and we've got some little traffic light system at the top here, so we can see that our chemical handling, which has just been completed, is on track, whereas our first aid course, which actually ran out yesterday, is off track because we need to get that staff member on a refresher course and get a new certificate issued. So really handy little tool there just to keep track of what everyone's qualifications and level of training is. So as I said before, that links really nicely into emergency responsibilities. So we can see at the moment that I've got this staff member as a first aider. So I've got them trained in first aid, yes, and I've also got them down as a fire warden. So obviously if we didn't get that certificate renewed, we'd have to change that trained in first aid to no, and we'd want to get that certificate up to date. So we can put in things around there as well in relation to that chemical handling. So yeah, this staff member might be trained in how to deal with a chemical spill. So we can hold all those details here under the staff member. And the last thing on the left here, we've got private details. So we can put in things like salary, and we can put in number of days leave, which is going to link through to our roster as well. So obviously we've got some confidential information in here, and that's where the permissioning comes in. So as a staff member, I'm not going to be able to come in here and see all of my colleagues' private details, but as the admin person for the farm, I will be able to see that level of detail because it comes under my permissioning that I can see that. So through that permissioning, we're able to tailor what people can see and what they can't see. So things can remain confidential. So that is our staff section done and dusted, and we will have a look at our contractors now. So the contractor section looks pretty similar. So we've got a list of existing contractors. We can add new ones in. We're going to have a look today at Joe Blogs and see what we've got in here. So as I say, very similar to the staff section. Key difference here is that we don't have that option to give them access to FarmIQ. We do have the option of recording their details and recording what business they work for. So that there's a few considerations here. So if you've got a regular contractor that's coming on doing a lot of work, maybe you've got a fencer coming in for the next 6 months to do some big subdivision, you might actually want to give that contractor FarmIQ access, in which case you would create them as a staff member. So the benefit of this is that they can log in, they can see, well, via permissioning, whatever you want them to see. But some of the things that might be worth giving them access to is all of your health and safety functions. So your hazard register, getting them to log themselves in as a visitor so you know when they've been on farm, and having them access to your hazard mapping. So some really useful options to think about there. And of course, via the permissioning, you control how much of your information they can actually see. But if we're just putting them here as a contractor, so it's mainly their details, their contact details, training qualifications, same as before, and private details as for a staff member. But the key difference here is we've got this induction section. So we've got it here on the first page. Have they seen the induction documentation? And then if we move to this induction section, we've actually got some questions here. So we've got a template of induction questions. So, running a business, we are obligated to look after people coming on farm as per the Health and Safety Act 2015, which we talked all about a few weeks ago in the last webinar. And we need to keep a record of these people that we've inducted onto the farm. If you've got a contract coming on and you've done your induction questions, that's something you should be reviewing at least yearly. If you've got other changes, if you've had new hazards come up or change in policy, then you need to be reviewing that as and when the changes happen. So we've got these templated questions that we can work through. So have we talked about the farm procedures? Yes, obviously you're going to want to tick yes for most of these. So yep, you talked about your policies. Have they got appropriate equipment, for example? But this template might not be 100% applicable for your operation. You might want to take some out. You might want to put some more in. And that's something that you can do in FarmIQ. So you can customize this list and put in your own questions if you want to. So that's really the important section here on contractors. So other than that, it's very similar to creating our staff records. So we're going to move on now, and we're going to have a look at our third parties. So we defined third parties before as people that are supporting your business. It's your team of rural professionals that are helping you, whether that's an accountant or a consultant or a vet. So what you can do is you can actually give these people permission to access your farm information. So currently on this farm, we've got myself set up as a third-party user, but I might want to add somebody else. So I can add new. And the way this works is that FarmIQ holds a directory of all these third parties. So if we go in here and we'll just have a look for one of my local vets here in the King Country. There we go. So we've got Will, and I'm going to ask to add him to our farm. So this guy has already been added into our FarmIQ directory, hence I can search for him. If I was searching for somebody else and they didn't come up in here, what I would do is I would call FarmIQ and I would say, hey, can you please add my vet, John Smith, into your directory? So we do this because then it's made available for every farm. So the benefit of having this directory is if we think about our vet, Will here, he might be working with 30 farms that are using FarmIQ. And if he gets asked to work with all of these farms on FarmIQ, and every one of these farms adds him as a staff member, he's going to end up with 30 usernames and passwords. I don't know about you, but I struggle with 3, let alone 30. So we add Will to this third-party database, which means that he's got one username and password, and then as he gets invited to see all of these farms, he gets a list of these farms in his login. So he needs one username and password, and then the farm invites him to have access. So once I've picked the third-party user that I want to add, again, I can customize what sort of access they have. So I might just want him to view the farm. I might want to give him sort of herd manager permissions. So the purpose of this could be that I'm doing an animal health plan, for example, with this vet. So the benefits of him having access is that he's got visibility of my animals, of what health treatments I'm doing, he's got an understanding of the system, and then together we can work to craft this animal health plan, which I can do in FarmIQ. And the benefit of that is it links through to my task system. So we've got the support, the farm support team that's helping us to run our business, and we can get everyone on the same page, looking at the same information and singing from the same song sheet. So yep, just to summarize, if you've got somebody that you want to add to your farm as third party, you can search for them in here. If they're not there, let us know and we'll put them in, and then they'll be available for you and any other farm that wants to invite them. Cool. So a vet's just one example. You know, there could be lots of different examples. You might want your accountant to have some visibility to help you with stock transactions or whatever it might be. It could be a farm supplier rep, you know, like a TFO that's helping you with a cropping plan, for example. So there's lots of different options, and there's lots of farms that are making use of this at the moment to help them create plans in FarmIQ. So I think that's enough on third-party users. Please feel free to send me any questions at any point. I'm happy to answer as we go. Otherwise, we'll deal with those at the end. So let's have a look now at our timesheets. So what we've got here is the view that the admin person is going to see. So I'm the admin person for this farm, and I can see every staff member that we've currently got. So some of my staff have recorded their time this week and some of them haven't. So we can see the ones in red with a red square next to them that haven't done it yet. We've got a white square next to 3 of them, which is telling us that the timesheet's not been submitted. So the process we work through is that staff record their time. You know, they might do that on a daily basis. They might do it at the end of the week. But as they go, as they put their time in, they save it. At the end of the week, when they're all done, they submit it. So once it's submitted, we then get that yellow square. And that's when it comes to me to either approve that or reject it and tell them to adjust it and tweak whatever problem it might have. So once they've submitted it, they then can't edit it unless I send it back to them. And then once it's approved, they can't make any further changes. So let's have a look at actually putting some time in. So there's a few different ways that a staff member could record their time. So they could do it through the mobile phone app on a smartphone, or they could do it on a laptop, on a computer. And let's have a look at how that would appear for them. So this is our demo manager, fictitious name, that's recorded some time so far. So we've got some time here as general tasks, and that's totaled at the end for me. We've got a team meeting on the Monday there. We've got another total in there, and we're also seeing a total for each day at the bottom. So we can go through and we can add another row. You know, this person might have had some sick leave, for example. So we'll put in some sick leave there. So maybe they were sick today. And that's going to go through and total up for us. So these categories we've got in here, so we've just got some basic ones that you're most likely going to come across. You can customize those and put some in there. So we've got a silly one that somebody put in there, but we've also got someone's put in their roster A and roster B. So you know, if they're working on a different roster each week, you can track that by time. And as I say, you can customize and put other things in here. So this is what we've got so far. We'll put in some time for Thursday as well for today. So we'll say that we had 8 hours on general tasks today. So our staff members worked up to today. It's not the end of the week yet, so they're just going to save that. And then I'm going to go back to my main summary page. We can see our now updated time for that worker. So for this worker, I've put in my time here, so we can see in red here is our sick leave. And we can also see that for this particular person, when I was in creating their staff profile, I didn't put their contracted hours in. Whereas my production manager, I put in their contracted hours as 40 hours a week and 45 for this other manager. And we can see that both of these guys have done 49% so far. So, you know, roughly halfway through the week, 50%, that's about right. So, you know, if we're getting to the point that we're over 100%, obviously we're seeing that, yeah, these guys are going over their contracted hours. And when that starts going well over 100%, obviously we've got some warning bells, and we need to be thinking about people's time and their welfare and making sure that they're being remunerated for that. So we've got our overall summary sheet here, as I said. So we've got a few other options about how we can record that time as well. So we can go through the phone and we can go through the laptop, but there's also two different ways that we can put time in. So we've just looked here at putting our hours in for the day. So, you know, 8 hours for today. The other option, depending on your preference, you could be asking staff to do their start-stop times. So going in and saying, yep, I started at 5:30 and then stop time at 9:30 for breakfast, start time 10:30, stop time 12:30 for lunch, and then the system is going to work out for you what their hours are at the end of the day. So it's down to personal preference, whatever you would prefer your staff to do. So just bear with me 2 seconds. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a quick chat about payroll. So FarmIQ is not a payroll system. So the purpose of this section is purely to collect time. So it's an easy way to collect those timesheets. You know, you can get them digitally, you can get them through the phone into one central location, and you're not having to collate bits of paper and type it into an Excel sheet or a system. So the benefit is, you know, you get your staff putting their time in through here, and you can export it to Excel and then load that Excel file into whatever system you're using, you know, whether it's PaySource or Ace Payroll, whatever that might be. At this stage, we don't have an integration with a payroll system. That doesn't mean that we won't have in the future. So at the moment, we just haven't had enough people saying, hey, this is the one we want to use. So that's where we really want feedback from you guys, from farmers that are actually using these systems, to let us know which which systems we should be looking to align with. So it looks like I've just had a question come through. We'll just get to that. So question, can Farm IQ integrate with Xero? So not at this stage. So we've got one integration with a financial package at the moment, and that is with Cash Manager. So you can enter your information into Farm IQ and then push that through to Cash Manager. We would very much like to integrate with others in the market, including Xero. So watch this space really, and we'll see what we can do. Great, so thanks for that question. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for what we wanted to talk about in timesheets. We will move on now and have a look at our rostering system. Cool, here we go. So I have got a bit of a roster set up here already for some of the stuff. And we'll just have a quick look through how we can really easily create these. So again, there's a few different options about how we can get this to look. So I've set it up so that each day is split into AM and PM, because on this farm we're milking twice a day. If you're if you're out of the milking season, you're dried off and you just want to see once a day, or if you're only once a day milking anyway, you can just see one line for every day and get rid of the AM and PM. So it's down to your preference what you want to do. So of course the benefit of having it split is that I might have this staff member at the top on in morning milkings. So we'll just turn on a few more here. So we'll have them do 6 milkings and then have a day off, and then we'll do another 6 milkings in the morning. And then we might pair that with this worker here on the 3rd line, and this worker is actually going to go through and do the afternoon milkings. Cool, so we can just populate that really easily. And then we've got somebody else doing the milking, so this chap here on the 2nd line is covering both milkings on that Sunday while other staff have a day off. So as I said before, we've got some smarts in here. So if you remember when we looked at setting up our staff and creating those primary and secondary schedules, that's where this links through to. So if I look at this staff member here, we see that I can clear everything, I can start from scratch, and then I might go through and apply a primary schedule. So this is where we said they were going to do 10 days on and 4 days off, or we could switch and choose our secondary schedule, which was our 6 on and 1 off. And if I want to change that schedule from here, I can do that as well. So I don't have to jump back into the staff records. So we've seen how to mark in days that we're working, and let's have a look how we can tweak it for other categories. So let's have a look. Say for example, this staff member is booked in to go to the doctors this afternoon, so I can book that in there as sick leave. So we've got that coming up in yellow. We might have a statutory holiday on this day here. So whichever staff member is on, so these guys are on this day, we'll see that obviously they're going to be getting time and a half. We can go through and again we can customize this. So we've got roster A and roster B. I could put a brand new category in there from scratch. Whatever that might be. Maybe we're going to have training, or we might have discussion groups, for example, if your staff are going along to a Dairy NZ discussion group. And then I can pick a colour for that and add that comes into my list there. Oh, I didn't pick my colour, I picked white. That was clever, cool. So I might have training in here. So I can put those in and then I can tweak. So it might be that we put this person here, they're going on to roster A. So it's really easy to just apply these different categories, turn things on and off, clear if you want to start again, and apply those schedules. So once we've gone through, it's adding up our scheduled working days. and our days off, and it's giving us a total. So again, really easy to plan ahead, make sure the workload is even and fair, and that everyone's got enough time, downtime between busy periods. So, you know, as I say, we've got these different categories, so I can go ahead and I can put in leave. You know, if we could go through to next month, our manager might have some leave booked in for August. I can go ahead and put in annual leave. They might be going away through here. I can enter all that in, I can save it, and then I can go back to July, and then once I come back through and get to August, it's there. I'm not going to forget about things. So we've created this roster. How do we share it? So obviously you can give your staff access to this so they can log in and view it and see it. And the other option is that you can print it as well. So a few different options there about how staff can see this. So there's our print option just down at the bottom. Great, so that's rosters. We're going to move on now and talk about our last topic, which is the diary and tasks. So we'll go over this fairly quickly so that we've got plenty of time for questions. So the great thing about the diary is, you know, good records mean that everyone's on the same page. You've got one version of the truth, and you can make better decisions because you're working off real data. An example that I regularly use is I was at a field day last winter, and loads of the farmers at this field day were saying, you know, oh, it's the wettest winter we've ever had. You know, it's the most rain we've ever had. And the guy whose farm we were on, he's been on Farm IQ for about 7 years now, and he said, no, it's no wetter than any other year, and he showed us all of his rainfall records. So, you know, often what we think is the case, it doesn't quite match up with the data. So that just shows you the power of data, really. So our calendar here, it shows us all of our historical activities. So we'll just scroll down and look at some records. So we've had a health treatment in here. We've had a mob move. So we've got all this information. What happened? Who did it? We can see who recorded it down there. When was it done? And we've got that traceability of who's done what and when it happened. So at any point, you know, we can see this on the phone app as well. So we can jump in and see, okay, that was the day that we treated those heifers. So you've got that transparency of information. All of this is searchable as well. So in the top here, we've got a search function. So if I just want to see animal activities in a certain date range, I can drill down and get that information. Cool. So we can see all of our events here. We've got that track, that record of what we've done. Now let's have a think about looking forward. Let's look at some tasks. So I'm actually going to look at this in my calendar view. I much prefer things to be visual, so we'll look at it that way. And we can see here that in green we've got things that were already recorded. So that was that health treatment and the move we looked at today. And then the information we've got in blue here are tasks, and we can see from our key that they're incomplete. If I wanted to, I could turn on the completed ones, which are currently hidden, and they'd show up in pale green. And we can see that we've got overdue tasks in red there. So I've got a task back at the end of June, which I am still yet to complete. So let's have a look at a task. Let's drill down into this drenching event, which I'm due to do on the 13th. So we can see we've got a bit more information here. I'm going to drench the bulls, and that's who recorded this event. I can go in and edit that. So I can put some more information in. I could go in and I could put in what drench I want to use, what rate, you know, whatever information is relevant. I can put in images and I can put in attachments. So we've got lots of information we can actually attribute to this task. I can also assign it to somebody. So this is how we can start to communicate those plans. So I might be assigning this to my production manager. So once I've saved this task is actually going to go through to their mobile phone app, and it's going to notify them that I want them to go out and drench the bulls on the 13th. So once they have completed that task, they can go in. If we just look in, just wait while it loads again. If we go in here and look at that drenching activity, I can mark when it's done. That then goes into my calendar and I can see, yep, we drenched those animals on this date and this was who did it. So again, we've got that link between planning, actually implementing, and then recording what information was done. So we can create these tasks from scratch from here. So I can just click into a day. I can pick a category. Again, like most aspects of the system, it's customizable, so I can put in new categories if I want. We've got quite a lot of detail, but I might want a specific, we've got drenching in there. I might want a specific vaccinating task. So I could create that myself. So I can create this task from here, or I can create it from my smartphone. So if I'm out on the farm and I notice something that needs doing, I can create a task at the time, and it will all flow through to the system. I can assign it to somebody, or I can assign it to myself. So again, we've got that. We're planning ahead. We've got that traceability, and we've got that ease of communication. And if things don't pan out, planning is a very fluid thing. Plans change. Sometimes you get busy and you have to readjust. So if we were to think about this drenching thing, I might realize, I'm actually going to be off farm on the 13th. I'm going to my dairy and discussion group. So I'm going to just drag that onto the 12th. I'm going to do it on the day before. Is that it's updated my task. It's going to go through and update the task on my phone as well. So it's really easy to move these plans around and rejig them. So I'm in my month view at the moment. I could look at it week by week. So we can see that's what I've got in there. We get a little bit more detail at that level. If I wanted to, I can print this. But it's completely up to you. So lots of options around there on tasks. So just while we're talking about tasks, we've actually got some pretty exciting stuff coming out next week. So this is something we're continually developing, and we've just done lots of new development on the task section. So it's going to be even better and more user-friendly as of next week. So some of the new stuff that's coming out is that we're actually going to be able to see tasks on every page. So I'll just quickly jump over into the other system for you to have a look. So we've got task, this new icon coming in here in the right. So I can see my tasks on any page of the system. So if I'm in the middle of recording a health treatment and I quickly want to stick in a new task, I can just do it without having to leave that screen. We've got things like a shopping list. So I can put in there that I need to get some candles, I need to get some gudgeons. I can just quickly jot that in there and save it. And the other thing that I really like is this farm to-do list. So I can just quickly write myself a note saying, oh, remember to pick up that drench on Tuesday, whatever. So really easy, not so structured. I can just jump in and do it as I remember, without having to set a formal task. And then once it's done, cool, done it today. When I look at this tomorrow, my things that I've crossed out are going to be gone, and I'll just have the stuff that's still on my to-do list. But you can see up here we've got history, so I can go back and see what I did and when. So that's just a quick sneak peek at some of the new stuff that's coming out next week. So that's pretty much all the content that we're going to have a look at today. So we're going to have a look at some of our questions now. Awesome. What have we got here? Just bear with me. I'm just scrolling through our questions. So we talked about zero already. What have we got next? So just a question here about downloading those timesheets. So yeah, you definitely can get the timesheets out of here. We'll just jump back in and have a quick look. So as I said, at the moment we don't have an integration, something that we'd love to do in the future. So again, please give us your feedback if you've got systems that you would like this to link with. So the procedure at the moment is you can export to Excel. So you pick the date range of the timesheets that you want to export out. So at the moment, it's just giving me this last couple of weeks. I can change those dates to whatever I want to see, hit OK, and it's going to generate for me an Excel file here. So I can take that Excel file and I can upload it into my accounting software or my payroll software. So I'm not having to do that double entry of data, which is what we really want to avoid. So great question there. So here I've just got my Excel sheet popped up in the bottom left. So I can save that, email it, do whatever I need to do with it. Cool, okay, so let's have a look here at the next question. I've got a question saying, can you have more than one entry in a session? Whoever asked that question, could you just please clarify what you're asking? Because I'm not entirely sure. If you just send that through to type that in and then I'll answer it. Cool, so what else have we got here? So can we include time in lieu for timesheets, e.g. if a worker works over allocation in busy periods and then recover that time in quiet periods? Absolutely, you can do that. So in our timesheet here, obviously we've got our totals coming up. I'll just pop back actually. We've got our totals coming up and we can see how many hours over our staff members have gone on each week. So we've got all that information stored in there. And what we can do is we can create different categories for that. So when we're entering our data, we can have our calculation up to here. So one of the things we could do in our tasks is we could create something called overtime, and it's going to add up for us how much overtime that person's done. We can see, as I say, we can see in our records all of the hours that they've done over what they're supposed to do. And then we can actually account for that in our roster as well. So if we just jump back into our roster. So in our roster here, we could actually create time in lieu as a leave category in here. So if we enter that in, have I spelt that right? Hopefully, there we go. Time in lieu, so that's a paid activity. I'll give it a color. Oh, we've already got red. I'll give it a different color. Garish green, there we go. So I've now got my time in lieu here. So we'll look at this third member of staff on the third row here, and we're going to schedule their time in lieu in for those 2 days there. So it's paid, it's work, but we can see now from our roster going ahead, they're not going to be at work on those 2 days, but it's days in lieu. So we've got that record, we've got that plan. So hopefully that's going to answer your question there. So let's see what else we've got. So we've got a question here saying, can you have more than one entry in a session in the roster? So I'm assuming by that you're meaning, can you record multiple activities in the morning? So are you meaning in the morning here, could you have work and could you also have unpaid leave or annual leave? So if they were just taking a couple hours, I think that's what the question's referring to. So having multiple activities in here. At this stage, no. So you can just put the one category into each box. So that might be something that you'd want to do in here is add a note maybe. So it could be for that person that they've got a couple of hours time in lieu in the morning, and then they're going to carry on into work. So that's where I would be putting that is in those notes. I think that's probably the best solution for catering for that question. Yep, so I just had some clarification here. So e.g. a couple of hours of time in lieu from 9 till 11 and then normal rostering from 11 till 12. So yep, so the best thing to do would be to put that in a note. So I would be putting that probably in as work because it's all paid, and then just have your note in here, and you could also put that in your timesheet, so you'd still have that record of what that person did. So in their timesheet, we could create a task category for time in lieu, and they could put those 2 hours recorded in that way. So you've got that record, you've got that visibility, whether it's in recording or in planning. So that's the best solution we've got for that question. Right, let's see what else we've got. Please keep these questions coming. We've still got a few minutes left. Just bear with me while I scroll through the messages coming through to make sure I haven't missed any. Cool, so it looks like we've got a few more come through. I'll just try and answer those before we wrap up. So we had a question that, sorry, just let me read this. We just had a question here about induction documents and how I can edit the questions in those. So we're not actually going to have time to have a look at that now. But it's something that we can do at the organisation level. So we won't go into that now, but we'll get back to you on that afterwards. It's a pretty simple process, and if you wanted to set that up on your farm now, if you gave the support desk a call, they'd be able to talk you through that in a few minutes. So we've just got one more question here by the looks of it. So the question is just clarifying ways of recording hours. So what we've got set up on here on the timesheets is those start-stop times. Sorry, other way around. What we've got set up here on the timesheets is recording your hours, and the other option that we can do is set up so that your staff can record start-stop times. So that's something, again, it's a preference you can set in here. It's really easy to do, just under the office section there. We just change the preference to say I want to use start-stop times rather than recording hours. So if you wanted to do that for your farm, yeah, give the support desk a call and they can step that through in a few minutes for you. So we are pretty close to 8 o'clock now, so we should probably have a wrap up. So we'll just go back to our slides for a few minutes. Great. Okay, so just to summarize, so we've had a chat about, oh, sorry, I've just closed my presentation. That was not very good. There we go. Right, so we have had a chat about our staff and contractor management. We've looked at timesheets and rosters. We've talked about adding our third parties to our farm using the Farm IQ directory. And we've talked a bit about communication and creating a plan. So looking at recording all the information that we've already got, and then looking ahead and creating plans and task management. So we're going to look some more about scheduling and seasonal plans in 2 webinars time. But the next webinar coming up is going to be on the interactive farm map. So please come and tune in for that one and ask lots of questions on Thursday, the 19th of July. And we'll have a look at how you can use digital maps to see new ways to view your farm. So that pretty much wraps us up for today. We've got 1 minute to 8 o'clock. We've not had any more questions coming in, which is great that we've covered all of those. So thank you very much for your participation and for joining us, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.